Hey guys, today we're doing a quick comparison between the original Override and the new Override 2 Mech City League. If you have not yet, I really recommend checking out my original Override 1 review on my main channel. This is more of a supplementary video and expects you to already know the basics of Override 1. This video will be mainly about the changes made in the sequel, so if you've not played the original game, please check out my other video first. Alright, with that out of the way, let's get started. The most obvious change in Override 2 is a new combat system. I talked about this a little bit in my last video. The game seems to take more inspiration from games like Tekken, so technically like the last game, each button corresponds to a limb attack, but they're no longer just punches and kicks, they're now more fleshed out moves. The first game's heat and counter system have also been removed. Each character has their own specific moves and special attacks that can be used at any time, and the mechs are now able to move faster, and there's more combo potential. I can definitely see how some people would argue that the combat in Override 2 is better. Heck, I even find it really fun, but it just feels a little bit less unique. Throwing stuff in combos can be fun, but spamming specials just seems to be more effective at times. So yeah, it's kinda weird, they clearly tried to make combat more complex this time around, but they removed a lot of the old game's complexity and counterplay, and I don't think they found an adequate replacement. I mean, even the super's kinda weird. Sure, some people don't like comeback mechanics, but is standing in a ring to charge super any better? I feel a combination of the two would be something really special. Sure, the first game has problems and it's too clunky and imprecise to be something competitive, but the second game seems to lack some higher level gameplay options. The stages are also quite a bit smaller this time around, which makes sense for a more competitive focused game, but they also have these dynamic elements that can't be disabled, and navigating them can be a bit of a chore. The AI this time around also seems to be a bit weaker. Sure, even the high level bots in Override 1 weren't that competitive, but these bots seem to make some really dumb choices. And with the online player base being mostly dead, you'll be playing with bots a lot, especially for story mode. Now let's talk single player content. The original Override had an arcade mode. This was more of a mission based story mode. It was your typical save the earth from an alien type thing. But it was fun to pick up and play and have some cool cinematics. Fighting aliens and even bosses was a good alternative to just fighting standard bots all day. And the story mode even has some light RPG element. You could earn and equip stats and abilities along with weapon drops. There were only a few mission types, so it could get a little repetitive, but it was still fun to play every once in a while. Override 2 replaced arcade mode with league play. It's pretty much just a selection of standard PvP fights, and they'll try to queue you up for an online match before all of them. It's kinda weird as this is the main single player mode, but you can still choose to fight bots instead. And yes, they will search for a match every single time, so get ready to press Y before every single fight. There are 3 main types of fights, and they all represent a specific league. There's the 1v1s, the 2v2s, and then the 4-player brawls. But unlike the first game, these are pretty much just set dressing for standard AI fights. There are some special fights like this tournament, but they're just fighting the same guy one-on-one multiple times in a row. The progression aspect this time around mainly comes from getting and keeping sponsors. They'll reward you specific credits for completing their challenges. Wait, block 50 attacks in 45 minutes? That's a bit much. And some of these bots won't even attack me enough for that. I guess you can ignore these, but you'll really want the credits for character unlocks and costumes. In Override 1, these costumes would just drop as you completed the story, but now they're much more of a grind. This mode is kind of a letdown as it's the main single player mode for the game. For multiplayer modes though, 2 new game modes are added. The first is Xenoswarm. It's a horde survival mode and sounds pretty cool. However, you're still limited to a max of 4 characters on screen, so it loses a lot of its luster. Also, you still have the standard pool of weapons, so no extra health items or power-ups, and as far as I can see, they don't even have predefined waves. You just fight enemies until the game ends abruptly. And the second and final new mode is called Capture. This would seem to be your standard King of the Hill mode where you fight for control of a zone, and it's mostly like that. However, it's more like you just take damage while being outside the circle. So you'll often have people die from just that, and the zone moves slowly instead of spawning at dedicated points, so you'll often spend as much time moving as fighting. There's no pushing points or holding locations, it's just walking and fighting at the same time till someone runs out of health. And yeah, that's pretty much it for changes. Sure, there are more mechs now, but I feel like the main thing the original lacked was extra content. The main mode was fun, but extra game modes would have really improved it. But these new game modes are just frankly underdeveloped. It feels like all the effort was put into the online features, and the first game never even had an active community. After the release of the first game, the team behind it was acquired by Modus, and the second game's not even an indie title anymore, so I really expected a step up in terms of quality and features. And I'm sure adding Ultraman added quite a bit to the cost, and maybe the team had less control over this title and were forced to put more of a focus on online features. I'm not sure, but I really wish they saved some of that money to improve the game's actual content. Again, the combat is solid, even if a little unrefined. And while I slightly prefer the original, I enjoy both, just for slightly different reasons. Override 2 is not a bad game, however it is pretty disappointing and arguably lacking in meaningful content, despite the extra game modes and more characters. They do have a pretty meaty demo though, and all the game modes are playable including online and split screen, though you'll be limited to 3 characters, so if you're interested you can check it out there. But I've heard unlocking all the costumes and characters in the main game is a bit more of a grind. Anyways, I really wish Modus Studios Brazil the best on their next project, and I hope it turns out really well. And thank you all for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.